I'm Sarah Buttison. I'm the investigative reporter on our exclusive report, Evading Justice.
And I'm Sama Assad. I'm the investigative producer on this project.
We uncovered hundreds of cases where accused rapists were able to avoid the sex offender registry. If you look them up, they're not on there, even though they were accused of a pretty heinous crime.
These are people who were originally charged with rape, and so they were not convicted on that crime. They pled down.
I think it's important to note some of the charges that we found that they pled down to. Assault.
Attempted kidnapping is one.
Public indecency.
Things that had nothing to do with the original charge.
I think it's also really important to bring up the fact that it is a public safety issue, but on top of that, victims aren't getting the justice that they want, that they were seeking when they went forward with pressing charges. We talked to the Cleveland Rape Crisis Center. Teresa Stafford, who runs victim services there, gave us some of her time and told us how when victims get these types of sentences, they feel like it means that someone, prosecutors, the judges, everyone involved, didn't really believe them. And to walk away and feel like no one actually believed you can be really upsetting and devastating. Alisa Alfaro, who's the rape survivor in our story, had reached out to us, and we initially did a different story with her about a totally separate issue. And her case hadn't come to a conclusion yet, but when it did, it fit within this framework that we were developing related to how rapists are able to avoid the sex offender registry.
After that story, Judge Michael Donnelly with the Cuyahoga County Court of Common Pleas reached out to Sarah and said, you know, this is such important reporting, and there's another issue that I see happening in the courtrooms and that, you know, I think that you should look into. So it really just kind of started with one story, and then, you know, victims coming forward from the past on other stories that we've done, and judges coming forward and saying there's even more to this issue. And Judge Donnelly even pointed that out, that his concerns about how if you give these defendants a pass and let them plea down and not have to register, they could just commit the same crimes again.
Well, and something else Judge Donnelly is very concerned about is that when he gives someone a sentence, he looks at their past. And if your past just says assault or public indecency, he's not going to think you need some serious prison time. But if your past says rape or gross sexual imposition, that changes the game. So part of the problem with these factually baseless plea bargains is that if somebody does end up back in the system, the judge who decides the case doesn't have all the facts they need to make a good decision about what should happen to that offender. I think every story affects me personally, and you take it home with you and you think about it at night and you think about what's the most fair story, what do we need to do in this story, who do we need to include in the story. I think it all stays with you. The trauma that people endure from crimes like this is so horrible and so unfair that you want to do whatever you can do in your power to help them. And journalists are supposed to be the voice of the voiceless, and that's what we try to be when we cover these types of stories, because so many times these rape victims and other people who are victims of whatever in society feel like nobody has listened to them and nobody has heard them. And sometimes if I'm doing nothing other than talking to them and letting them know that somebody is hearing them and believing them and cares about what happened to them, I feel like that alone is something that serves our mission.